Hey everybody, Digital Unity here, and welcome back to Digital Unity vs. Programming. This week, I grow a fruit. The AI gets completely rewritten, and we're finally ready to start with the fun stuff. Monday. When adding a new feature, you always want to have at least some basic art. Last week I mentioned I wanted to add hunger, swimming, and animations. One of those I have some art for, and the others, well, I modeled and even lightly animated this solar panel tree. Tomorrow I plan to make it grow battery fruits for the robot to eat, but for now all it does is shake when I press the spacebar. Once the tree works, this will all be activated by clicking on things. Click the tree, it shakes. Click and drag the fruit to move it. Click and drag the robot to move it. I may also need to add some shading. Things are looking a little bright for my liking, but this feels like good enough progress for Monday. Alright, technically day 7 started at like 2 a.m. I had a genius idea for how I want the different stat fruit trees to look. Obviously the battery tree has to be for stamina, right? That just tracks. The swim tree, I want to lay out the leaves like the fins on a hydroelectric turbine. The flying tree is going to be a windmill. The strength tree is where I'm getting some. I could do a tree that grows literal backup generators, a tree that grows uranium-232 fuel rods, a tree that grows coal, or a tree that grows V-twin engines. There's a lot of room to experiment here. The speed tree is also a cause for concern. I don't really know what I want to do about the speed tree. Maybe like a turbofan? I'll have to look at electrical and mechanical parts and decide what makes the most sense. Remember all that talk I did about how I got the little guy moving last week? Garbage! All of it was trash. Bad. You're bad? Better to find that out early than to deal with it forever. Unfortunately, early is the name of the game because I worked on this all the way through to 6 a.m. on Thursday, and I still have a problem with it. In theory, my method of generating a target location to navigate to on the map is great. Works fine. Aces. If the floor is level. You see, that's the caveat. The floor ain't level, which means, of course, that I have to figure out how to make it level. Or at least how to make the code think it is. Right now, my target points are generating at y equals 0. Every time. I need to get them to generate on the ground, not above it, not below it. So that's what I'm doing tomorrow. Additionally, this new nav mesh stuff is great! This opens up so many possibilities for navigation. All I need to do, though, is figure out how to make the nav targets stay on the ground. From there, adding the weight of gravity to the velocity will completely resolve my remaining issues with navigation, and we'll be able to get it back to figuring out how to eat fruit. I did it! Okay, let's break it down. What did I do? I got a pathfinding with the nav mesh to work. To a degree to which I'm satisfied. It's obviously gonna need a few changes here and there, you know, adjustment this and modification that, but basically, kind of a big deal. The pets now find a location on the ground in the garden and follow a path to it, traveling at their speed stat. And I know it doesn't look like it, but they are rotating along this path. They do this to check if there's anything in front of them that they want to pick up, which will be essential for fruits and toys in the future. I think the rotation, as of the day I coded it, may be a little wrong. I'll touch it up later, but essentially it points toward the target location, moves itself there along the path the nav mesh generates, and when it stops for any reason, it starts counting down until the next search. This might also need to be adjusted, but hey, it's way better than whatever the heck I had last week. This presents me opportunities for verticality as well, and I already planned ahead. The node that finds the point to travel to checks from a random height between the highest point of ground level and the highest point in the map. First terrain it finds is where it pops down a nav target, baby! Also, I made the fruits into rigid bodies, because it made more sense. I think things are really starting to come along, at least in this regard. I can now have as many of these guys instanced in a garden as I see fit. The only problem is this garden is tiny. They were running into each other so often I had to write code to handle what happens if they get stuck on each other, which honestly is probably more accurate to Chow than properly implementing avoidance would be, but I do want to get avoidance in somewhere down the line. But anyway, this is how movement will be handled. All that garbage from last week is swept out and we have a shiny new system in place that works much better. Next thing to do is make these critters get hungry and teach them how to eat. Well, here we are, the last day of the week, once again. And wouldn't you know it, more refactoring, baby! Yeah, after getting the basic wandering figured out, I decided to implement it as part of a crude state machine. Took a little doing, but now behaviors are all independent loops. Sort of. I still have to figure out a few things, make everything run the right way, but hey! This is something! Additionally, now that my code is in a state machine, I was able to add the second major goal of the week. Eating! Ha! Ha ha! It's not quite done. But basically, the bot will find the nearest food on the ground it can, path over to it, eat it, and call it a day. Once a fruit is consumed, it snaps back to the tree to start growing again. I don't have that programmed yet, but that's what the goal is. By recycling fruits like this, I won't have to worry about instancing them endlessly, and it adds some incentive to grow fruit trees and stock the gardens. This is subject to change, much like the movement system was, but hey, it's still something. I couldn't quite get hunger working though, so that's not ready yet. So this week wasn't a total bust, despite having to redo a bulk of the work from last week just to make things right. Now by the time you're seeing this, I'm actually not just out of town, but out of state for the week. No way I'm getting back to my computer to code or work on anything, so unfortunately next week won't have an episode of this. To compensate, I'll be doubling down on Tears of Kingdom streams, with one on Monday and one on Friday. But the next time I work on this, I'll be making my life easier still with a change state method so everything is reset good and proper. I'll also be fine-tuning values for things like hunger depletion and stat leveling, which probably means adding more variables for levels, but for now, this is as far as I go. I also want to touch on something. I held a poll for naming these guys, and while the majority voted for packets, one big-time genius of a commenter suggested the name Robuds. Adept. I want to thank you personally for this name. I love it a lot. I don't know what you'd consider a fair trade for that name, but once it's at least ready for testing, you're getting a free copy. I got this close to calling the game Packet Pals. So that's it for this week. See you next time as I continue to yell at my laptop when it doesn't do what I want it to do.